The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports. You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars.
I'm looking at what Houston's got coming in. I'm looking at what Houston's got coming in Pop Isaacs and Khalifa Sacco. And I think that I really like the more I look at the combination of Pop Isaacs playing with Milos Uzan as I looked at that roster depth chart and talked some about like who could be on first and who's going where. I do think the freshmen will play. I don't think the freshman guards will get redshirted. You might see Bryce Jackson redshirted, but that's, he was always a little bit more of a development project, like Isaiah Harwell might be a lottery pick and that kind of a thing. We know Sampson does so well with those guys like Bryce Jackson spots. We also seen them use, Jarris Walker has turned into like the prototypical guy that shows up and develops his game and works hard and still becomes a lottery pick, even though he played in the Houston system. I think you kind of see both those guys and what Harwell and Jackson bring. That does not mean to me, though, that Pop Isaacs does not have a real chance at this team. Now, I'm going to evaluate him based on how we saw him play. Obviously, had major hip surgery in the middle of the season this year after playing just 8 games, and that'll change some. The recovery time will change some. And again, I think that's why he probably gets a medical redshirt, even if I don't want to assume as much. Now, played 8 games, and I would point out that he was the driving force in beating Kansas hurt in those 8 games. He played hurt this year, which I think actually sheds a lot of light on like the toughness the kid has, whereas his rap before that was kind of like he's a scorer that likes to, celebrate and have a good time, and that was kind of his rap at one point in his career. I think playing through injury until it was impossible to play anymore this season and kind of leading that Creighton team when he was on the floor really tells you a lot more about him, especially as he's getting older and more mature. I also will say, in watching Pop Isaacs play some at Creighton and getting ready for this in the last couple of days, he's a lot, at least when he was at Creighton and playing. Again, we haven't seen him post-surgery in a game situation. He has been working out and stuff, but he's gotten a lot better at like the harder things to do since his freshman year at Texas Tech when he was an all-Big 12 freshman or an all-Big 12 performer at Texas Tech his sophomore year, right? Like, I think it's interesting to watch a guy grow up like that, and it seems to, when you see that happen, make sense as to why that guy would choose Houston, right? It's like the next evolution of the Pokemon where you're moving up a thing, right? He's going from Charmander to Charizard, and the goal there would be to find someone that helps him develop into that. We both know that's Kelvin Sampson and what he can do for a program. This is a mutual thing, though. This was not just he's going to sign up and be a student in the fall. Kelvin Sampson then recruited him as well to come to Houston. And you should know that, like, while he's at Creighton, he had an over 26% usage rate. What does that mean, Parker? That means that on more than a quarter of their offensive possessions, the possession ended with him touching the ball last. And an assist, a basket, a shot, free throws, even a turnover, right? He was the last Creighton player to touch the ball on more than a quarter of possessions he was in. He's a very ball-dominant guy at Creighton. But he shoots over 40% on spot-up catch-and-shoot threes, and he does it really well on movement. And so I think that that's kind of where he fits in well with Uzan, in that both of them can shoot well in the catch and shoot, and both of them can be really aggressive in the attack, right? They're both Vegas natives, and so that adds a layer of fun to this, and they both get along, which adds another layer of fun to this. It's not unlike when Cryer transferred to Houston and played alongside Jamal Shed. They both knew each other from AAU circuits and those back in those days, even though Cryer was from KD and Shed was from just outside Austin at Manor. They knew each other from like circuit kind of runs and wanted to play together, right? And also Cryer wanted to come home and that whole bit, wanted to play for Sampson, get better at the things he needed to get better at. That's where this feels very similar to me. Cryer, third-team All-American. Pop Isaacs has the offensive game to do those same things. He sees what Cryer's working on. He's like, I've been getting better at those. I need to get even better at those, and sees that as a transition and a translation, right? And he shoots really well on catch and shoot, shoots really well on movement. But don't be fooled. Like, this guy uses the space that gives him, the gravity that gives him to get to the rack as well. He gets in the lane pretty effectively for guys listed at 6'2", 6'3", depending on what listing you're looking at. I do think that what's interesting to me about him is that a lot like Emmanuel for Houston, Emmanuel Sharp, you see a lot of Pop Isaacs threes happening from like NBA range. He understands this as a smaller guard. He might need, like he shoots from out there at a pretty efficient, relatively speaking, clip at a pretty high percentage out that far, and that gravity element again pulls guys away to open up driving lanes and drop offs and so on. And I think that that's where he fits in. And again, I see him continuing to grow and mature. I see Sampson's a great guy to do that, and the fact that he recruited him, Sampson recruited Isaacs, that is, and that Isaacs is coming to Houston, I think understands that, or implies to me they both understand what that is. I will say that as we pull up that depth chart one more time, that's a lot of guards, right? From oldest to youngest, you've got Emmanuel, Milos, Pop. You've got Terrence is kind of a wing. You've got KJ. You've got Mercy. You've got Kingston. You've got Isaiah. You got Bryce, right? That's a lot of guards. Kelvin Sampson always, now he'll trust older guys early in the season, but he always plays the best guys. We saw that happen last year when he started the season starting JVR. Team played better when JoJo started, so he started JoJo after that, right? JVR was impactful. JVR had the dunk of the century in the NCAA National Championship game, right? JVR was impactful in winning the Duke game. JVR was important in winning a lot of key games, but Sampson saw the younger guy was important to winning, and so he played him. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that any one person starts out of that guard room. I do know that Houston will probably play three guards because they have for feels like most of the Kelvin Sampson era, and it always helps when two of them can kind of run point. Frankly, that's when they've kind of been their best, when you had like Marcus and Jamal. Jamal was the more true point guard, but Marcus could do it, right? You had Quentin and Ladiki, right? Like whatever, right? Multiple guards is a good thing for Calvin. And so I feel like what you're going to see is a lot of rotations early in the season, kind of finding his guys, selling in the roles. But I still think you probably see a more even distribution of guard minutes next year than you did this past year, where you really only brought in Malik and kind of Terrence off the bench to help out that backcourt. Really, Terrence played a lot more small ball 4 than guard by the end of the season. Speaking of small ball, okay, somewhat ironic because he's not very small. Khalifa Sacco is coming in as well. He'll be a transfer senior from Sam Houston. He's listed at 6'11". I would believe you if you told me he's 7 feet tall. He sticks out like a sore thumb on Sam Houston State tape because he's so big and so athletic. He's had a crazy high variance career. He's got some games where he's got like, easy double-double, best athlete in the gym. No one looks like they can run with him. He's got games where he has had trouble putting the ball in the basket in his 4 years before this. I guess 3 years of playing. What I like about the guy is that he's 6'11" and change, positive wingspan. He's got long arms, and he's still a high-energy guy, like constantly moving, constantly like in and out of the lane on defense, constantly doing all the different things to disturb what's going on with the other team. He dunks everything inside of 5 feet, which is awesome. But the height, the wingspan, and the vertical, he gets the ball inside of 5 feet. He's going to try and dunk the thing home, and that's freaking awesome. At Sam Houston, he was really effective as a roller. Synergy has him at 1.13 points per possession as the roll man. So if you run pick and roll and get him the rock, you're getting a point every possession or more than a point, which means you're scoring on more than half of those possessions, right? That's pretty efficient, to say the least. I thought he had, in watching some of his highlight clips, really great feel for relocation, meaning if the guard drives baseline, relocates to an open spot to catch the drop off, or getting out of the way while also being in a position to catch the ball. That's hard to teach a big man. It's a lot of feel, a lot of reps, and I think Sacco's got that. Frankly, it's going to be interesting to see how he translates to Houston, because so much of what he did at Sam Houston State was being the best big athlete on the floor. And I don't think it was particularly close. Blocked a lot of shots, had a lot of rebounds, wants to catch lobs, wants to get out and run. What I like about this guy, my vision for the guy, is I see him being a veteran big man off the bench. I see JoJo Tugler and Chris Sinak, the McDonald's All-American, coming in as a freshman, both starting. Sinak may be a lottery pick. Like if he were able to go right out of high school, I think he would be a lottery pick this summer. He's that kind of good, and it's going to be that kind of fun to watch, right? Think like Jarris Walker, but like a little taller and skinnier, right? Like that kind of, I mean, plays in the perimeter, does great stuff, right? I feel like, though, you want the veteran Sacco in there to kind of like be the adult in the room at times. You kind of want older guys around a Sinak in the forward center group, right? So when we look at that depth chart, right, Sinak is the only freshman true big, right? McFarland would be a redshirt freshman, but he's also been at Houston for so long. You got to remember the injury and the actual redshirt and so on. He's going to be a little bit older as well. Said Lott, older. JoJo Tugler, older. Sacco now, older. These guys that they're surrounding Sinak with are the older grown men to kind of help teach him the ropes about what college basketball is all about in a big kind of way, right? And so I see that being his role. I think it could be the third big. Houston will start too, so it'll be the third big in. He and Ced could be fighting for that spot. They're very different athletes, but also both very like wildly, incredibly talented athletes. Big, strong, fast. They just look different in how they do it. And so I don't know who's going to get that third big spot. For all I know, I can tell you right now, in a high school, I would have thought it was going to be Jacob McFarland because he's such a skilled guy with the ball relative to both Ced and Sacco. And so I feel like he'll make a run at that as well. Whatever the case may be, I think all these guys can be great supporting staff to help grow and develop Chris Sinak in a really quick way.
The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if that bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking my favorite teams or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals to assists. There's so many ways to bet. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance for an even bigger win. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
With Caleb Glenn transferring to Michigan State University, our Spartans just got a little bit more offensive help.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Big-time portal pickup, four-time Izzo for the Spartans because, contrary to popular belief, Izzo was not just in his lake house, just enjoying sunset after sunset without doing a single thing in the transfer portal. No, that man moves, but he does it in silence. As loud and boisterous as he is on television and in front of microphones during press conferences, now they get their stuff done in secrecy here in East Lansing. Kind of surprising the college basketball world was picking up Caleb Glenn out of the transfer portal, 6'7", 210-pound wing player out of Boca Raton. Now that is, of course, by way of Louisville. This will not be his second college stop. This will be his third college stop. But let's get to learn about our newest Spartan here, guys. The number 11 ranked small forward transfer prospect on 24/7 Sports. He was second team All AAC for the Owls. He averaged 12.6 points, which led Florida Atlantic last year. He also snagged 4.8 rebounds per game. Now, the last game that he had for the Owls, not too shabby. 18 points, 5 rebounds, unfortunately in a loss for the Owls in the NIT against Dayton, but hey, went out on a high note there. Now, this is not going to be the first time that we've seen Glenn play at Breslin Center. If you guys remember, in the middle of the season, our Spartans took on the Owls. Now, Glenn, just 6 points, 2 of 9 shooting, 1 rebound against Michigan State, but we're not going to knock a guy for having a tough game against Michigan State because we just saw, in pretty good sample size, how good Michigan State was defensively last season. Actually, if you break it down, which you can do this on barttorvik.com. If you looked at his games against top 100 opponents, which there were 11 such games that FAU played this year, played pretty solid. Like, there's a lot to like about his game. So let's just get into why we love this pickup for the Spartans here. And, of course, what number do I like to fly to like a moth to a flame? It is at 3 three-point percentage number. Now, is that because we just saw Michigan State be on the complete run end of three-point percentage pretty much the entire season? Yeah, a little bit. Is it more so of, well, this is just the way basketball is going, the three-pointers more prioritized? Yeah, it's probably some combination of both, but we like to see that Mr. Glenn shoots the three at 40.4% from behind the arc. Now, it's not like he's gunning it up as much as Steph Curry is. He's not putting up 12 attempts per game from three-point land. A little over 3 per game, but he is much more well-rounded than a shooter. We'll get more into the shooting numbers here in a little bit. But guys, on twos, specifically around the rim, really good finisher around the rim. He is 60% shooting on 2-point field goals, and when he is around the rim, 69.8% finisher around the rim. That is certainly above average, especially for a guy. Again, like, we're not talking about a 7-foot center here that's just dunking the ball in here and, just laying the ball in after jumping 4 inches. No, this, for a 6'6" guy, 70% around the rim. That's pretty solid. Obviously, he's got good finishing skills. He's got some bounce to his game. Don't expect him to compete in a dunk contest against Cohen Carr, like Carr's in his own league. But hey, you know what? On that next tier, you'll see guys like Caleb Glenn with his bounce, so he can do it in a variety of ways. Now, back to his shooting. How does he do it? Does he do catch and shoot? Does he do it off the dribble? Well, got good news for you guys, because on catch and shoot three-pointers, he is in the 80th percentile at effective field goal percentage, if I can get those words out of my mouth. Let me say that again. 80th percentile in the nation on effective field goal percentage on catch and shoot shots. Off the dribble gets even better when you stack him up against all of his other guys that he's going up against nationally. He's in the 93rd percentile shooting off the dribble. Now, he does get to the free throw line quite well, like not like Frankie Fiddler status, where it was almost like, 5 or 6 times per game when he transferred here from Omaha. But still, you're going to like to see that he got to the line 3.4 times per game last year. Now, it's not all great. I don't have like nothing but awesome numbers for you. One concern, 62% free throw shooter. It's not great, but everything I just named here, hopefully you're going to like what you see from Caleb Glenn. I do think that is fascinating, though, that he is kind of a poor free throw shooter, but seems to be fine from 3, fine from elsewhere around the court. But yeah, free throws just hasn't really gotten it together, so hopefully he can get a bump here in East Lansing in what will be his 3rd year collegiately. Now, what does this mean for Michigan State? Well, first and foremost, like we talked about, Michigan State gets 3-point help. Because you lost Jace Richardson. You lost Trey Holloman. You lost Jaden Akins. You lost Xavier Booker. You lost Frankie Fiddler. And while the 5 guys I named, you might say, what are you talking about Frankie Fiddler for? He shot 19%. What do we care about that? The 5 guys I named were the top 5 3-point field goal attempts for Michigan State. Like, I know that didn't go in. I know we wanted a lot more 3-pointers to go in this year, guys. But as far as volume goes, you're missing a lot of volume. And of course, amongst that, you're missing guys that could actually shoot threes, like Jace Richardson, for example. Jaden Akins on the right day. Same with Trey Holloman. But yeah, Michigan State needs 3-point help, not just for what we saw last year, but even in the little 3-point shooting that we did see last season, you lost most of that. Yeah, sure, you return Jackson Kohler. I mean, he's shown, especially at the end of the year, that he's going to have a 3-pointer to his game. Cohen Carr shooting, still a work in progress, but definitely took a leap forward last year. But yeah, you need bona fide 3-point threats to be trailers in transition, which I think Glenn could be great at. Or, if Michigan State gets zoned to death, which they did last year, I'm sure they'll see a little bit of zone this year. Hey, yeah, having a guy that can shoot the corner 3 as well as he does, yes, please. We're going to need 3-point shooting. What it also means for Michigan State, it gets pressure off your young guys, right? Like Jordan Scott, Cam Ward, the 2 freshmen that are going to come in that if Michigan State did not get a wing out of the portal, I don't think they would have been thrusted into starting roles, but man, they really would have gotten a bulk of the minutes, maybe the first guy off the bench, whereas they still will play this year. I just don't think they'll be demanded on for, 22 minutes a night if you weren't able to get a guy out of the transfer portal. No. So what this does, gets Jordan Scott, who I'm mainly talking about. I think Cam Ward profiles as more of a 4, like a power forward. But Jordan Scott, okay, he gets to, I'm going to use air quotes on this one, ease his way into college basketball. As much as you could ease your way in being coached by Tom Izzo, that is, and playing in the Big Ten. So that's going to hopefully help his development a little bit. Okay, it's going to be baptism by little flickers of flames, not just a full-on bonfire right off the bat for him. So what does the lineup even look like now? Well, Jeremy Fears is going to be your starting point guard. Don't think I'm going to spoil any news with that. Now, at the 2-guard spot, right now you do have Kurtang. He did only shoot the ball 14 times last year. I would like to see someone more polished, someone that's more ready for a starting role come in out of the transfer portal for that 2-guard. But at the 3-guard, I still think it's going to be Cohen Carr at the 3, Jackson Kohler at the 4, and Carson Cooper at the 5. So Glenn coming off the bench, he's your first guy. He's your 6th man. I don't know, what was said during the conversations with coaches. I'm just, shooting at the hip here. I'm throwing wet spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. But right now, I think that Glenn could be your 6th man right there. And that's not to say he's not going to get starter type minutes, especially if Michigan State wants to go to a small ball lineup here, which there will be no shortage of those opportunities this upcoming season with, of course, Jeremy Fears, whoever's going to play the 2-guard, Tang, portal guy, whatever. But if you have Glenn at the 3, slide Carr down to the 4. Cam Ward could, of course, play the 4 too. And then Jackson Kohler at the 5. Or if you want to get nuts, Cohen Carr at the 5 for a little bit. Told you we're going to get nuts here. Cam Ward at the 4, Glenn at the 3. Again, guys, there are some combinations you can have for some small ball here. It's not like Jackson Kohler's any stranger to playing some minutes at that 5 position. Cohen Carr, of course, comfortable playing that 4 spot. So you get some versatility with Glenn's commitment to out of the portal. One more thing that I thought was fascinating, and I did talk about this just a little earlier at the top. It's not just going to be his 3rd college in 3 years, but it's going to be his 4th school in 4 years. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. His 5th school in 5 years here, because he is Louisville born and bred. Okay, so he's from the Louisville area, went to a high school there until his junior year, transferred to La Lumiere in Indianapolis, that basketball powerhouse, his senior year of high school, then committed to Louisville, and then transferred out to FAU, and now Michigan State, his 5th school in 5 years, which has to be a first for guys under Izzo, a Tom Izzo that, preaches loyalty, culture, all this and that. But I will say this, not to, go full, spin zone and try to, force you to believe something, but I don't think this is a character flaw like you see sometimes with guys that, have gone to 4 high schools in their 4 years and then they're going to go to 3 or 4 colleges. I actually think it's very rational to reason why he's going to be at his 5th school in 5 years. Obviously, junior year of high school, I'm going to go to the local high school. And then when Lao Lu in Indianapolis is there, especially when you are a 4-star recruit out of high school like Caleb Glenn was, go ahead and get yourself into that prep school your senior year. And then you come back home to Louisville. And this is where it gets interesting. This is where I really start to reason with the poor kid, because good on you. Commit to the hometown school. And how do I say this nicely? If the Titanic, that ship that sunk a little bit ago, I don't know if you heard about that. If that ship was a college basketball coach, I think it would have looked a lot like Kenny Payne and what he did at Louisville. So I can't fault Glenn for transferring out of that mess. After his one and only year at Louisville, goes to FAU, finds a really good landing spot in a mid-major school, and now he wants to go back to, high major basketball. So you can kind of see how it's gotten to this point, 5 years, 5 different schools, but such is times in the world of college athletics too, guys. Now what? For Michigan State, I don't know. No, they're probably done. No, I'm kidding. They're absolutely not done. At least I hope they're not done. That's the other fascinating part about all this, too, is just how well Tom Izzo and company do at keeping things under wraps. Some schools out there, they want you to know every single recruit they've even given an email to. Izzo and company, they brought this down to the bitter end with hardly anyone knowing about this. But anyway, now what? I can only imagine. And I think you can only imagine too, you listener and you viewer out there, you beautiful people, that this team is going to be fishing for at least one guard, like a starting shooting guard. Like I've said maybe 4 times in this very episode so far, is going to be a need.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
One of the top recruits in the class of 2026, a top 100 recruit too, chose BYU over Utah.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes.
Brock Harris has been a name. I think it was years ago we talked about Brock Harris. He was one of 5 players when the initial 2026 national rankings came out. One of 4 players to be ranked inside the top 100. So we were excited that, hey, Utah might have a chance to land one of those top guys. And if he went somewhere else, it wasn't going to hurt as much because you figured it would be SEC school, Big Ten school. But instead, he lands at BYU. Not just a Big 12 rival, but your direct rival. So, yeah, the fact that one of the best players in your state picked BYU over you, it definitely hurts, Matt.
Yeah, it's not a good trend that we're seeing right now for Utah. The hard part about it is the NIL factor, not knowing if that's the reason. Or, he might have picked BYU all along. I look at it and I think, his dad was a pitcher there. Mm-hmm. He's, obviously he's a member of the church.
Will be serving a mission.
Finding a serve a mission. So all those things are kind of what BYU would have gotten in the past. The fact that he's a 4-star is where it hurts, and especially, top 50, I think.
If you're doing national rating, he's 56. If you're doing the player rating, all this is according to 24/7 Sports, he's 67.
Okay. So top 60, top 75. That's a big. It hurts, and especially knowing Utah got him in for a visit. They got their opportunity, and they couldn't bring him in. But again, it's just hard to say. Is it NIL? Or is it the fact that maybe he was planning to go to BYU his whole life?
Mm-hmm. I heard late last week it was not trending in a positive direction for Utah, but they still had a chance, and obviously they always see him going to Cougars. 5th tight end nationally, 2nd-ranked player in the state of Utah, only behind Celestine Moe on the player rating, but if you do the composite ranking, he's the top player overall. And Harris is, he's 6'6" tight end who can move like that, a catch radius. I think that's what also makes this hurt, right, Matt? Is like Utah's known for consistently producing good tight ends. Like, I know Carson Ryan ends up going to BYU too, so now you've lost on 2 tight ends. We're actually going to talk about the tight ends at the end of the show because they are looking really promising so far too. And we'll, in the second segment, want to hit on some of these recruiting trends we're seeing where top recruits are choosing BYU a lot over Utah, especially the in-state guys just right now. But going back to this, it hurts because it's a tight end. And you're like, hey, we have Dalton Kincaid, we have Brant Keith. Look at how highly these guys produced at this level. And instead, you're more of a believer, and whatever it may be. You choose BYU over us, despite us having a better recent history at the position. And once again, it stings, Matt.
Well, and it's hard because BYU, they are now in the Big 12, so in that regard, they're equal. I would have thought that these types of things would take a little longer to happen, and maybe they will. This could be a one-off, like I was saying before, just because BYU has not proven that they can put players in the NFL at the level that Utah has. And so I thought it would take a little more time, but they've got a lot going for them right now. Utah's a little bit on a down. Just they've had a couple of rough years due to injuries. While BYU has had a really nice year, they've got some stability now showing at the coaches at all levels. And maybe that had a factor too. While Utah's kind of got that, how long is Whittingham going to stick around? How much is the coaching staff going to change? It's a new offensive coordinator. So there's a lot of things that can play into that.
There's a lot of things too. And BYU, yes, their NIL success has something to do with their NIL, the amount of NIL resources they have. We just saw them. I think reports are they've landed the guard out of Baylor for $3.5 million.
Yeah, 3.5.
Bonsa somewhere between 5 to 7. I've seen varying reports. Like, we know their pockets go deep for basketball and for football too. They landed some really good transfers. They kept some good players too. So we know BYU's pockets roll deep, but that doesn't change the fact. And we're going to talk about one guy who specifically said in the second segment that he always wanted to go to BYU, but didn't feel like their program was at a level at the time he made his commitment. Now feels like they're at their level and decided to go to them. I do feel like BYU having such a strong season where they finish as a top 20 team nationally, if not for tiebreakers, they're in the Big 12 championship game. They're arguably the second best team in the conference last year when you look at how everything ended up playing out. The fact that BYU succeeding is definitely a part of this. It's not just NIL related. It is partially too because the Cougars had success last year.
Yeah, I don't know who said it. I don't know if it was Whittingham, but somebody said winning fixes everything. And I think it's true. It does.
It does. It does in so
Nothing hurts.
yeah, it is. It's a rival too, and you have a chance to. Hey, if Utah beat them, they would still have something to say over them, but unfortunately, they didn't. So that's what also makes it tougher too. What's nice is Utah does still have a chance to land some of the top guys in the class. Celeste Mo is going to make his visits to Utah. I do. Mamu Talo is a guy that Utah's still in on. He was committed to Oregon as a defensive end. Now wants to be an offensive tackle. Thinks that's his best chance to.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
And the nice thing that Utah is going to continue to offer, especially for the highest level of recruits, the 4-stars and some of those guys, like, hey, if you go to Top Dog, and BYU's not in this, that's where this becomes a competition for them. But if you go to Oregon, like Bob Mulitalo was going to, you're not going to play as an offensive tackle right away. There's too many guys there that are going to get on the field right away. If you come to Utah, a la Spencer Fano, and I'm not saying Bob Mulitalo is going to be Spencer Fano, but what does Spencer Fano do? High recruit, played right away. That's what Bob Mulitalo has a chance to be. And that's where Utah, even though some of these other schools are going to have NIL advantages on Utah, what Utah can offer you is elite development. So maybe right away at the collegiate level, you're not making as much had you gone to big school, but you are maximizing your potential so that when the time comes for the NFL draft where you get that long-term contract, you are the best player you can be.
Yeah, it surprises me how poorly some of these, blue blood type top schools develop their players. I don't know if it's as much of a concern for them just because they have so many. And just for fun, I was going through and looking at the top recruit classes over the last 3 or 4 years. And it was shocking to me how many of the names that were these big 5-star guys that I don't even remember, and there's so many guys that don't pan out, but it does seem like if Utah gets one, and they have some that don't work out, but if Utah gets one and it was kind of from the beginning, they almost always do well. They're higher 4-star type guys. Almost all of them make it to the NFL. I'd have to do, some percentages and things, but I think if you were to look at it, Utah, when they get a good player, they make it.
Like recent ones that stand out to me, Spencer Fano working out very well. Clark Phillips made it to the NFL. Jalen Johnson, one of the best corners in the NFL too. And I feel like there's another guy I'm forgetting. But Caleb Loman was right up there as well. He feels like he's on his way to being a future NFL offensive lineman. So Utah does have a history of, hey, when they hit on a big-time recruit, a big-time player, usually said player goes on to achieve NFL success. That's another thing Utah has. You mentioned earlier, Matt, Utah still, at the time we're recording this, over the last 10 years, they have the most success amongst Big 12 teams of putting individuals into the NFL, having those guys get drafted. They're going to have several guys get drafted yet again this year. And that is something that is a major accomplishment for the University of Utah's player development system. That's still intact too. And you look at Utah's roster, I like what they have all over the place.